It is Friday, September 26th, and we have Bytemaster in here. He's going to talk a little bit about Bitshares X, his DAC, and maybe a few questions about Bitshares as on the whole. Do you want to get started, Master?
It's been a heck of a week of development and updates. We've been making significant strides toward the market maker and the order matching engines, both of which were upgraded this week. And I think we have one more issue that's going to be deployed this weekend, and with a fix, and it's going to be there, I hope.
What's it fixing?
Right now, there are some cases where shorts don't get matched. So we have a gigantic short wall that USD is holding very nicely, right around $1, plus or minus 1%. So I'm quite pleased with that. It's now possible for market makers to make money while generally being long Bitshares X. So that's good. The main thing we're looking at now is ways of further enhancing the network and the peg, and to level the playing field for all parties. The biggest challenge we have with BitUSD is, of course, liquidity. And the primary reason it's not liquid is because a lot of people want to go short and they don't want to cover. They want to stay short. The people that bought the BitUSD, however, want to get back in and out of Bitshares X, perhaps to trade the market. And sometimes they have trouble finding another buyer. The market makers are helping with that, but we need to encourage shorts to provide the liquidity. I think we need to view shorts as liquidity providers is their primary goal and purpose. They get the benefit of going short, but they also have a corresponding obligation to provide liquidity to the people that they borrowed the dollars from. You can think of the people with USD, BitUSD as lenders, and the shorts as the borrowers. And the borrowers are basically saying, no, I don't have to pay you back ever. Unless there's a margin call, I don't have to pay you back. So we are looking at adding a 1 month maximum period that you can remain short, after which point you have to cover and go short again. The benefits of this will be to encourage the shorts to look for good buying opportunities to provide liquidity earlier, rather than holding out to the end of the month, at which point they are forced to cover at whatever the market rate is at that point in time. No fee associated for the covering at expiration. The other thing it does is it forces shorts to maintain competitive collateral at all times. They cannot get in a losing short position and stay there with low collateral. At the end of the month, they have to cover, take their losses, and if they want to short again, they've got to provide more collateral. Overall, I think it'll make the system more stable, more liquid, and it effectively charges shorts, long-term shorts, those holding it over a month, a fee proportional to the spread. The smaller the spread, the lower the fee. The wider the spread, the higher the fee. If there is a high spread because no one's providing liquidity, then it's going to discourage shorts from creating more, which is what we want. If there is high liquidity, then that means the shorts are doing their job. So overall, I think that it's one additional tweak that we're learning as we go through this process of how the market responds to various aspects and rules.
I have a question about the short fee. Typically, when you short at a regular exchange, because you're borrowing, they have a fee schedule or a rate schedule like any other type of borrowing, right off the bat. Why would we wait a month to start incurring like a borrowing fee?
Well, there's automatically a borrowing fee, the spread. So at the end of the month, they can either cover it any time during the month or in the month, but basically they're forced to cross both sides of the market and therefore incur the spread, and that becomes their fee for going short.
Okay, thank you.
What's keeping somebody from creating bots that essentially go short and cover right beforehand and then essentially bypass the mechanism? Is there a way to do that with a bot, or am I visualizing this wrong?
I hope people create bots that cover very frequently. The more frequent that people short, cover, reshort, the more liquid the market will be, and the better collateralized the market will be.
So you're forcing them to move funds around just to maintain that, so it's going to keep the market more liquid in general.
Yes, if you know that if there are only two people in the market, you and I, one of us goes short and one of us goes long, we both know that at the end of the month we're going to have to settle, or at least being long, you know that you can settle, and they're going to have to buy from you at a fair price.
Gotcha.
So versus you're holding BitUSD and I'm sitting here short and saying nanner, I'm not going to give you anything because I still think it's going to go down, and well, maybe you want to get back in, but everyone wants to get back in, so you can't sell your BitUSD. So it's basically an escape valve that forces the market to settle and close up and exit all short positions within a month, unless new shorts can be created.
If you had posted a market maker bot, which I'm running, Toast had posted some little more than pseudocode for an arbitrage bot, which I'm also running at the same time. If some similar very high-level description of an algorithm for a shorting bot could be posted, I'd be happy to write a shorting bot as well. But I can do the coding, but I don't understand the economics.
Right. The shorting bot is just like selling. The way I'm doing the shorting bot is I shorted against myself after buying up the order book and got a large short position, and then I just run the existing market maker bot, which, because I'm long and short simultaneously, gives me a net neutral position on Bitshares X. And the market maker bot then just trades between being leveraged and non-leveraged instead of long Bitshares X, long BitUSD, and switching between BitUSD and Bitshares X.
Toast mentioned that you had made some tweaks to the market maker bot. Are you going to submit them to the GitHub as part of a release?
Yeah, my tweaks are relatively small, but yeah, I can.
Says the guy who coded an entire engine.
Well, my tweaks are basically just conditions on when I do things relative to the median. So, yeah, I'll probably just release it as an improvement to his bot. But generally speaking, you can look at his bot's logic and play with it. The other thing we are working on is a new transaction type. This is not a hard fork, just a wallet upgrade that allows you to simultaneously cancel multiple orders and place new orders. That should help with the bots and transaction fees. The other big event of the week is Nubits.
Yes. I was waiting to see who would bring it up. Can you please?
All right, so Nubits. My official prognosis is that it is likely to be a raging success until it's not. The fundamental economics behind Nubits are consistent inflation. The supply of Nubits is always increasing, never decreasing. and there is no way to settle it. You always need to find another buyer, another holder, another bag holder. And the way that they incentivize finding additional bag holders is by creating more bag holders, giving you a bigger bag to hold. So it's a game of musical shares. That everyone is holding Nubits as long as they are confident that they can sell them in the future, along with the interest that they expected to earn. I suspect that it's not as reliable as BitUSD in the long run. BitUSD at least has a mechanism to go back to 0-bit USD. It actually takes them off the market. The people who are creating them are actually assuming risk when they do so. The creators of the Nubits vote to print more, and if they vote to print too much, the interest rates would get very high, which is basically a vote to print more. So that if they make a mistake and they overestimate the demand for Nubits, and they print up too many, it's just round and round. The Nubits holders themselves have no say. They're completely at the whim of the new shareholders, and overall, the system closely resembles a Ponzi scheme, and I don't throw that around lightly, primarily because the only way to sustain their peg is to find more and more buyers. So I caution people against, there's no reason to invest in Nubits either, because they're pegged to the dollar, so they're not going to go up. I suppose you could buy Nubits just to earn the interest that they're promising to pay you. But the whole operation seems shady to me. So I would urge caution there.
And do you think that there's an existential risk to Peercoin being exposed through their peer shares to the Nubits?
No, Peercoin is not at risk from new shares. They might benefit if there's any benefit, but they're not going to have any risk. The only risk to Peercoin was, of course, getting sucked up in the pump and dump. I told everyone to buy the rumor and sell the news. It looks like that's what a lot of people were doing, and it was a really smart trade. So I'd like to use this as an opportunity to highlight the difference between collateralization and the Nubits style system. Because I thought about, well, what if we did that for Bitshares X? What if we said that if you hold Bitshares X for 6 months, we'll give you 10% more? All of a sudden, everyone would take the Bitshares X, put it in there, and you'd have to decide, do you want liquidity or not? You'd basically debasing shareholders in exchange for reducing liquidity of other shareholders. So you're buying liquidity by debasing your shareholders. Sorry, you're the opposite. So what long-term value does that have? It obviously has no, at the end of the day, no value was created. It just postponed the sell demand on Bitshares X. So I think it could cause a short-term price bump and then a long-term price fall, assuming no other value was created. So that's what's going on with Nubits. And when you apply it to a company and you realize, would Apple ever print new shares to give to people who promise not to sell the shares for 6 months? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I'm going to buy back shares today and then sell more tomorrow, is what that's saying. It's a guaranteed loss to the system. So who knows how long they can sustain it. Most good Ponzi schemes last a while before they unravel.
Do you think it's a good one? I mean, I've read a lot of negative posts about this. I guess we can call it a scheme, maybe. where do you stand on it? Does it seem like it was intentionally made this way, or what?
I think they thought that the system would work. I don't know if they realize the Ponzi scheme it is. Now, to be fair, people have called us a Ponzi scheme for promising yield on USD, gold and silver, and even Bitcoin. We said a year ago, almost to the day, that we would offer yield on Bitcoin. And guess what? You can get yield on Bitcoin in Bitshares X right now without printing money to do so. So it's a real yield versus a debasement. The thing people need to understand is that every single transaction, issuing a share, results in value transfer from some group of users to another group of users. And you have to ask, what do you get? What are you buying with that value transfer? And that's how you analyze these systems. So in the case of a short and a long, buying and creating BitUSD, there is a value transfer. One person gets leverage, the other person gets price stability. And when they exit the position, value changed hands from one party to the other according to the system. That is a stable system. That's a system that can go work at any scale and does not depend upon continual growth. Anyway, that's how I'm trying to provide this information for people who might be confused, might think that Nubits is a competitor for BitUSD, and that's clearly not the case.
Well, one argument that I heard them say was that that essentially they could print their own money or Nubits to fund development in infrastructure and different things that are needed for Peercoin, Primecoin, and all of that, like the entire ecosystem. And that's where they're assuming that they're going to get a lot of value from that's going to offset this printing of. Where do you stand on that? I mean, the most logical thing I've heard was that.
I think that the ability to issue shares is a great way to raise capital to grow. And I have long promoted the idea that DEX should allow delegates to issue new shares as necessary to raise capital. That's issuing shares in something that's not market pegged. That's very different than issuing Nubits and expecting them to remain pegged to the dollar when you are printing when you're doing so much. So I guess what they're doing is they're borrowing with the printing press back. It works just like the government. They have a lot of credit because they have access to the printing press, and they offer to pay interest on. How do we pay interest today? We print more money to do it. It's working kind of like the U.S. government in that sense. But at the end of the day, that is a thing. The issue is moral hazard. The new shareholders, they have control over the money supply, but they're not exposed to the risk of overprinting. They get the benefit of printing and selling the Nubits, but they don't have any. What happens if they say, "Oh, we're done, thanks"? What incentive do they have to buy back the Nubits they printed?
There is none.
Exactly. That's moral hazard. That's the same thing as trusting a centralized institution, lending them your dollars today on the promise of interest, and if they default on their debt, then you don't get your dollars back. You're lending dollars to the Nushare corporation, if you will. When you do that, and the Nushare corporation is not posting any collateral, they are not doing anything to guarantee their incentive to buy back from you, other than saying, "No, if necessary, we'll sell more Nubits to hold you off."
So are they the first crypto junk bond?
Perhaps.
Wow. So these things are. Hey, this is very complex stuff for the average user. What do you guys are you saying that essentially this is reflecting a lot of the stuff that's actually exists today, all these different innovations that are coming out? Because I know that Bitshares seems very different from almost everything I've seen.
The more you look into Bitshares, the more you realize it's the same as everything you've seen. The contracts, the economics, the risk swapping, the derivatives, it's all stuff that's been out there in one form or another for ages. Bitshares, just the only thing different about Bitshares is the exact combination of features combined with crypto. So I think that there's the company metaphor, understanding these things in terms of things that existed, helps us tremendously, both in explaining it to people and in innovating, because we can, and analyzing our competitors. I can look at a competitor's offering and say, oh, how does that apply in our metaphor? Look it up. Yep, this is where it fails. Or this is how it's similar to something that's done today. Look at the pros and cons of that.
It seems like there's also legal deficiencies in the Nubits issuance approach, that although there's a sort of vague veil constructed by the shareholders of the Nushares, it seems like they'd be at a fairly large risk, given their the likelihood of default, that regulators may actually come after those shareholders as well. Don't you think?
I have no idea what the regulators will do, but they've definitely painted a relatively big target on them by setting it up in this kind of way. They're not promoting this as, yes, these are back. They're saying we will back the value of Nubits, whereas we say no, the market will back the value of it. You're trading on a prediction market. You're speculating on what everyone else is thinking. So I think that from a regulatory perspective, it's a little bit more challenging. On the other hand, by screening the new shareholders, it's not a public offering.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and that was pretty concerning, because it seemed like selling them in lots of 5 million, and you had to actually whisper Jordan Lee himself or a small group of people to get in. They eventually dropped the limit to, I think, 1 million, which came out to something over $1,000 for 1 million of them, and they're going to keep printing them. Those are the new shares, rather. It was very interesting.
So someone asked the question, does Nubits hyperinflation affect new share price? It certainly does, but if the new shareholders already got the benefit of printing the Nubits, what's the benefit of new shares? I guess you bought new shares, you want to make sure that they have value. I don't see the relationship between new shares and Nubits. It's like, what's the relationship between the shareholder of a company and the bondholder in the company? Well, if the company can issue a bunch of bonds and then spend all the money on parties, the shareholders got lots of benefit. Shareholders, assuming they got to direct how the funds were spent. After which, they don't care about the bondholders anymore. Now, if they want to continue the party because they think they can get more credit, then great. But as soon as they can't get any more credit, they can't print any more Nubits, because their interest rates are already so high that they have to spend all their printing power just on interest rates, then, all right, game's up for them. What's interest? They already got maximum benefit from it.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to figure it out for me. I don't like it from what I've seen. I was actually very surprised when it came out and I read about it.
So perhaps could we maybe create some credit default swaps then on Bitshares perhaps?
For
the Nubits.
Interesting. You can have a BitNuBit. Then you can go short the BitNuBit.
Well, that actually, this is a good point for me to ask a question from Mako, who wanted to ask earlier about is it possible to essentially make it get an API for outside exchanges so people could visit their a centralized exchange and actually still make exchange orders on the Bitshares network.
Yeah, the centralized exchanges can already do that. It's just like a withdrawal request. For example, they could say, oh, you want to submit a bid. Okay, I'll create a bid on the network, and after the bid's created, it shows up in your history. And when you cancel it, the funds go back to you. So it's just like any other asset. They would have to, they would hold the private keys for you and submit the bids and asks at your request.
I have a quick question. Is it possible to have an RPC call in the wallet so that we can have a transaction with multiple outputs? If I want to, for example, send like 10 US dollars to 20 people or so?
I said earlier we were working on the ability to combine multiple operations into a single transaction. So right now, the primary operations I was interested in was canceling orders and submitting new orders in a single operation, and then doing withdrawals and transfers.
That will be this. Okay, in that part. Okay, I see. Thanks.
I have a question yet. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it or not. Bitshares Music is coming out, and Cobb posted a new sort of simplified white paper of it. It looks pretty fantastic. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the relationship between i3 and the folks doing Bitshares Music, because they released the first one and it was met with mixed results, and then Toast said, "Oh, I'll talk to them," and now they've got this new thing. I'm wondering, what is the relationship? Is it just friendly like advice, or are you even allowed to talk about that?
It's mostly just consulting and advice. We had a conference call with them. We went over their strategy, and we expressed ways that they could improve upon it. And that's probably the result of that conversation. Is probably the new paper they published. I haven't read. I haven't been following what they've been putting out. So, other than a conference call with them about once a month, they're relatively autonomous.
So that's pretty interesting then. So they're truly just users of the toolkit then. That's pretty cool.
Yes. So I make economic recommendations. I suggest ways of allowing it to operate that I think will allow them to grow most effectively. The biggest challenge they have is finding software development. They might contract with us to develop some software for them, but we are currently at capacity working on core toolkit functions. Speaking of which, I wanted to discuss some planned updates to the toolkit that will not necessarily make it into Bitshares X because of the social contract against printing Bitshares X. I wanted to add the ability to short anything against anything, including shorting Bitshares X against BitUSD or BitGold or whatever. So that would create BitXTS. The idea of that is that the Bit assets are now collateralized not just by Bitshares X or the shares in the DAC, but they're collateralized by all the other assets in the system, which means everything's backed by a basket of assets instead of a single asset, which means any single asset falling in value dramatically doesn't affect the entire backing of the assets.
That's a great idea. So essentially, it's making the network more robust.
It's making the market symmetric instead of asymmetric.
Why would the social contract now be prohibitive to make that improvement to in the future to Bitshares X?
Bitshares X has a hard limit of 2 billion supply. The option to debase Bitshares X, Dacsunlimited can do what they want, but we're providing the toolkit to allow people to try the inflationary model if they like, and Bitshares X can do what it wants. But I think that these systems, all the new DACs coming out, the DNS, Vote, Music, are all implementing the share issuance model through the delegates to fund both development and long-term maintenance and growth. And that's something that Bitshares X users are going to have to debate whether they want to allow such a significant change to the deflationary model. Right? Everyone on Bitshares X was expecting a deflationary system where there are dividends and a decreasing supply, because that's how they expect it to go up in value. And I think that there is a rift in the community between those who want the deflationary model and those who want the ability to issue new shares to raise capital to fund growth. It's an interesting discussion to have. We've discussed it here in the past, even before Bitshares X launched, but it's certainly something to think about.
Out of curiosity, this is one of those places where you've talked about clones and forks. What would keep you guys from essentially making two of them, making the changes to Bitshares X and keeping it running as another kind of separate, I don't want to say coin, but you got token, and then having the old version, and then just snapshot for everybody who's in ownership of it, and then let them sell or and make their positions on the chain that they believe in the most.
All right, so I think the market is the ultimate way of reaching consensus, and that the only way to establish that is to honor Bitshares X holders in a new chain and then allow them to vote in the new chain whether or not to inflate the new chain. But that would be how it would have to operate. I think there's a lot of people that want hard-coded consensus of no inflation, and others want shareholder voting on inflation or on share issuance for funding development. And those two mindsets are not compatible. Those who want absolute assurances that they're not going to be debased for any way, shape, or form would be interested in Bitshares X as it exists today. Those who are willing to risk democracy of shareholders controlling the printing presses for the purposes of funding growth might be interested in a new system. And those two groups of people would be competing against each other in the market. And it'll be very fascinating to see how this all plays out. Obviously, we're just providing the technology that makes all this possible. Someone's going to have to figure out if it's worthwhile to try it and take responsibility for maintaining it.
Well, but these are really good questions for us.
Yeah, but with the cross-chain trading with BitUSD on both markets and possibly airdrop on the existing market, it might be feasible to do it.
Yeah. So if you short Bitshares X, will there be more than 2 billion Bitshares X? Well, the process of shorting Bitshares X requires posting BitUSD as collateral, which means that there is 4 times the Bitshares X that you are shorting in collateral. So you're basically making some of the collateral liquid when you short Bitshares X. So the effective supply will not be greater than 2 billion, but the technical supply will be, because the collateral out there is being reposted as collateral against movements in the opposite direction. So if you were to sum up all collateral positions and all balances on all accounts and balances in all orders, the sum would add up to more than 2 billion. But from a liquidity perspective, you can't actually sell more than 2 billion on external exchanges at any time. Someone posted market fragmentation. I agree, market fragmentation is not good. And that's primary reason that would discourage a competitor. The network effect is very important, and if you have 2 systems that are almost identical at the early stage, you can fragment it. On the other hand, it might actually not get that fragmented if everyone absolutely loves the new system and Bitshares X holders were fully honored in it. To enough extent that causes them to get on board with the new system rather than stay with what they have.
Could you say what you just typed, C-Largy?
So he's talking about the reserve ratio. At 100% ratio, it caused Bitshares X outstanding to less than 100%. Yes, but we have 200% reserve ratio or more on all shorts.
Yes. So the reason that I mentioned it is because it's occurred to me that maybe in the future, if we wanted slightly more liquidity, one way we could do that is by fudging the reserve ratio. So it sounds like by having this sort of recursive shorting opportunity, if the reserve ratio is less than 100%, it could cause some problems in supply.
I agree. So it is possible, I suppose, that Bitshares X holders would not have a problem with shorting Bitshares X. So what that allows you to do is it could help enforce the peg. If someone's trying to sell BitUSD cheap, you can buy it cheap and then short, and then take the USD you got as collateral for shorting Bitshares X.
Yeah, and there could be it could potentially amplify an attack, a speculative attack by someone who is short, if not a lot of the BitShares were being used, if they were just idle.
Right. So I think overall, allowing shorting of Bitshares X with BitUSD increases demand for BitUSD, which in turn increases demand for Bitshares X, which is obviously working against what the short thinks. So they're creating demand that counters their order. But
good point. So I guess that would lead me just to ask about the premise. Do you believe that the reserve ratio may change in the future?
The reserve ratio is currently set by market forces. I have a philosophy that you shouldn't be able to create something from nothing. And if you're going to sell $1 worth of value, you better have $1 worth of value before you do so. I guess it's the moral equivalent of, can I put just a fraction of a percent down and have less than 100%? Basically, just put enough. There's always going to be more than 100% collateralization, because when you go short, you take the price, the money from the person who's buying the dollar, and that goes into the collateral. And then you have whatever additional collateral you put in. We currently say you have to put in an equal amount, and that's the whole value for value principle. technically, if you allowed someone to put in just half the amount, then you're giving them leverage and at the same time exposing the network to risk. So I don't think that giving people more leverage is good for the system. Leverage is inherently risky, and heavily collateralized positions that are covered long before collateral runs out makes the system robust and stable.
Well, I think that the one counter argument I would offer is that the leverage is useful, and right now it sounds like the system is externalizing that. It's requiring risk to be put outside of the system, so internally it avoids that risk.
Right. If the system's over leveraged, you could have catastrophic failure, and we want to avoid catastrophic failure.
Thanks.
Rhag asks a question here. He said, could we have a mechanism to allow shareholders to vote for a proposal that doesn't actually become active and change the blockchain rules at that point? That way we can have a quantitative understanding of the consensus of the shareholders to see, so kind of like a poll within the blockchain, I'm assuming here, to see how much initial demand there is for an inflationary version of the DAC without having to fragment the market unnecessarily.
I suppose you could, but based upon voter turnout at the current time, the opinion is going to go with whatever I think is best.
Yeah.
So maybe when it's more mature, those type of systems would make sense. And in fact, we designed a proposal system into the network to propose changes and trigger hard forks when the proposal gets approval. I think that's going to be the long-term solution. But in these early formative stages, it is not particularly useful. I'm trying to walk a careful line here, because there's a lot of people that are expecting this to be fixed supply, decreasing supply, and so they need to have their system. I think those that want something else are going to have to compete in the market for it. And either way, I'm making all the changes available so that Dacsun or whoever's taking the toolkit can take it and modify it and apply it to their branch how they see fit. So,
well, out of curiosity, I mean, I don't understand how it would be fragmented, because the one thing that's amazing about the system is that you could essentially clone, Dacsunlimited could create their own chain, completely give the exact same amount of shares in it as I have in Bitshares X. And sure, Bitshares X might drop in price, but they both combined might end up being worth a lot more. And as holders of Bitshares X, Invictus is going to benefit from this too, especially considering that if there are changes that end up being found to be really beneficial to the system, you've essentially avoided that risk or minimized the risk by having multiple chains that are doing it in that manner. And if I want to divest in one of them because I don't believe in it and it goes up, then that's my fault. What do you think about that?
That's effectively the market approach to polling the user base to find out what they want. And I suspect that what people will do is jump from one ship to the other based upon which one they think is going to grow faster. If they're worried about inflation, they might dump the inflationary one and use the proceeds they get from dumping that one to buy more of the deflationary one, and vice versa. If you don't know which way it's going to go, you say, all right, thanks, I'll hold both and we'll see where it goes. But I don't want to encourage a split at this time, because it does fragment the user base. The shares on one system are not fungible with shares on another.
Sure.
And exchanges now have two things to list. You've got two sets of code bases to maintain. And So I'm not really interested in that. Most of this conversation is hypothetical in nature only. But it is something that should be discussed because of the 10 rules, if a system is more competitive and someone thinks they can do it, someone will do it. So every coin and the coin holders are responsible for adapting to the market conditions to be the most competitive they can be to maximize their value.
I have a question that's pretty off topic. I know Overstock.com is the sort of big name in the room in terms of wanting to IPO or perhaps doing something with blockchain, but with very little detail. Has i3 been approached at all by other companies looking to do something similar?
I can't talk about those types of things.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be a conversation killer. Carry on.
No, it's okay.
I have a question. So that's regarding DDoS attacks. So the thing I discussed with Joey and with Gamey, the conclusion we came to was that DDoS would be more of a problem with DPOS, because you could DDoS all the 101 delegates, like you could DDoS the biggest mining tools, or the biggest miners, but with proof of work, you would have the possibility that if some miners cannot work because they are DDoSed, and then the transactions would be processed by miners with less hashing power. But since in DPOS all the 101 delegates are voted in at the moment, and they are the active delegates, you would have to vote out.
The effect of the DDoS attack would be the same in both systems. The transaction and block production rate will slow. Block times on Bitcoin would fall proportional to the hash power that was DDoSed. Block times in DPOS would fall proportional to the number of delegates that were DDoSed. But DDoSing 101 delegates is not as easy as you think, because no one knows which of the thousands of nodes in the network are the delegate nodes. And delegates can have multiple nodes and start up new nodes on completely different networks at any time. So DDoS of delegates is a lot harder than DDoS of mining power. And the effect is only temporary delay of transactions, not a permanent shutdown of the network.
But wouldn't it be enough if you knew the IP addresses of the delegates?
Why in the world would any delegate publish their IP address?
I don't know, but they wouldn't publish it, but couldn't you do some, network analysis or so, find it out?
We have modes on the nodes that allow you to connect to a node without relaying who's connected to it. So a delegate can have their node behind a NAT where no one can connect to it, and connected to 8 other nodes that don't reveal their peers, and those 8 other nodes would all appear to produce the block. You'd have to DDoS all 8 of those nodes, and if those nodes are DDoS, the delegate will just connect to some other node in the network and publish their block that way. So yeah, there's no way that you can DDoS all the nodes in the network, and the delegate's code is adaptive to seek out new connections from other nodes if some of the nodes they're connected to go down.
And another point was, thanks for the answer so far. Another point was that the IP addresses people use on the forum might be the ones they also use for their delegates, and like that might be the case with some, but not with all. But wouldn't it be like a good guidance rule to recommend or require even for delegates to not use the same IP address as on, or the same machine as on the forum?
I highly doubt there are many delegates using the same IP address as on the forum. Most are using VPSs hosted in the cloud, or Linux server machines that are 24/7. I would expect most people browsing the forum are doing so on a laptop or tablet or most likely not their delegate machine. And if they are DDoSed, they'll miss blocks, and people will say, hey, what happened? And say, oh, I was DDoSed. They'll learn real quick. So I don't think it's a problem.
Out of curiosity, what kind of role do the delegates who are kind of laying in wait as secondary delegates play here? I mean, are they constantly, I'm assuming, downloading the blockchain and keeping track of all the transactions, but they're not signing anything. So can they really be analyzed as easily as the delegates who are doing the transactions?
No, they can't.
So essentially, the secondary delegates who are online would be, well, then what's keeping us from just, oh, never mind. Out of curiosity, do you mind if I ask a couple questions from the subreddit real quick?
Sure.
There are a couple of them that were really interesting to me. Mistaganator asks, is it likely Bitcoin will switch to DPOS? Further, do you think this will have a negative or positive effect on Bitshares if they did switch?
I think it would be unlikely for them to switch to DPOS because the architecture is so wildly different. It would be too significant of a change. I would expect them to switch to something closer to Peercoin before they switch to DPOS. I don't think Bitcoin has the ability to fund the development necessary to make such a sweeping change and get all participants on board. I think the free market, the only way to upgrade Bitcoin is to outcompete it in the market.
What are the most significant things coming in the future? How much effect do you think it will have on market cap? And when are they likely to occur? If there are any possible future events that could have negative effect on market cap. And you've talked a little bit about what's coming in the next, few weeks. Do you have like a longer term vision, or is that non-disclosable at this time?
If I knew what events would affect the market cap, I'd make a killing.
Well,
I can tell you that every day I work hard to produce value. I can't tell you what the result of my efforts are going to be. So there's lots of risks that could hurt the market cap, bugs, delays, competitors. There are lots of things that could help the market cap. Adoption, merchant acceptance, market depth, liquidity. All these things are things that will help. The timeline for these things, someone posted a question, where do I see the market cap in the next 24 months? I can't say, but I think, I have my own opinions, but because of my position, I can't really answer that.
And then there was one more that, this is more of a UI question, like a GUI interface thing. Cryptillionaire asks, the market overview page that lists all the trading pairs, are there plans to make it nicer looking, like having filters or drop downs for pairs or listing pairs by market cap?
Yes, there are certainly plans to make that better. I have needed that page, but obviously we've been focusing on functionality before aesthetics, and so that's where all of our priority has been.
3 is enough for today, and it's been about an hour. If anybody has any questions for Bytemaster, I don't know how long you have, Bytemaster.
I've got lots of things to do here, so I think I'd like to wrap it up. Thank everyone for showing, and once again apologize for being 20 minutes late. All I can say is that the stuff we're planning is big. It's going to be hard to compete with, and we're doing the best we can to provide value, innovate. And I think that the number one thing we have is being agile to respond to market forces rather than being rigid. And I think you're going to see that working tremendously to our advantage in the months ahead.
Well, you haven't proven yourself to be doing anything otherwise yet, so thank you for stopping by. Looking forward to what Brian's saying next week. And just for everybody else who's here, I talked to Cobb, and he's going to come on to talk to you guys next week. So you can ask him any questions that you want to. I suggest you read up on everything, and you don't have to, but it's helpful if you want to ask some good questions about what he's planning.
His new simplified white paper is worth the read. It's pretty fantastic.
Man, I know that's how I felt with the gaming deck. I when I read the white paper for the gaming deck, I realized that I was looking at the gaming deck all wrong. Like, I was looking at it more like a coin, you know what I mean? And then you realize, whoa, this is so much more than a coin.
Yeah, the music DAC is doing things with coins and with shares, and reorganizing the music industry in ways that I hadn't even comprehended. And I'm wondering how, they're talking about marketing to individual artists and having that direct to market pipeline for the artists. But it wouldn't surprise me if the big labels got on this too and used it to crowdsource and promote and otherwise be them big selves on the blockchain.
Oh, you're saying like they'll see that there are going to be competitors who will rise out of this technology, and essentially they're going to want to get on there first. And
well, I kind of look at it like iTunes or Amazon, maybe not so much Amazon Music, but iTunes specifically, and other and Netflix and that sort of thing, where it's like they'll look at this technology kind of like they looked at iTunes and be like, we can fight this, or we can modify our business model to play along and not compete with it, but leverage the platform to increase their revenue.
They see the potential to be one of the first to actually have this technology associated with their brand too. So I kind of agree with you actually on that.
Well, think about what it makes them, right? It completely takes away all their production costs. All they have to do is basically be brokers.
Yeah, literally. And they can do it from a cell phone.
Yeah, because you think a lot of artists, and I mean, no offense to anyone here, this is a completely hypothetical example. Older country western singers who have a hard enough time checking their email are not going to figure out how to release a coin on a blockchain, blah 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 blah. So they're going to have agents do that for them, which is probably what the labels are going to become.
Oh wow, yeah, people will come up with their own labels. There'll be like whole marketplaces of labels who are marketing people.
Or the labels could do the trading themselves and make their money that way.
They could have an arm on that too. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, they can play the market, right? Because they can stock up on I don't know who's a big name nowadays. I used One Direction before because they're always on the news, but they know One Direction's having a concert. It's not announced yet. They can stock up on One Direction coins and then launch their marketing campaign. The coin goes through the roof, sell it. It's almost like a pump and dump, so no one gets hurt.
It's not a pump and dump because you're giving people real value for it. You see, you're actually pumping and dumping real value into an economy.
Marketing is pumping, so you're getting paid before the marketing.
Yeah. So it's like anyone else, right? Like if you watch a big company and the top executives are having like they have to publish it, but the blockchain is also published. But when insider traders are buying back a lot of shares, you get the feeling that there's something in the air about to happen, and I think this is going to be the same way with the labels.
One thing though, is everything going to be through a website or something? Because how can you check if the name is the official registered one? Stuff like that. Maybe I need to read the white paper.
I think they face the same issue as Follow My Vote in basically identifying people. And I think with something like a music DAC, the artists don't really have any motivation to be secret. Like a financial investor does. So they, we could have like a know your artist kind of thing, and I think it would function okay.
And have a release ceremony where they sign the official thing publicly with their own signature or something, so everybody can verify it's the correct one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or they have to sing their address. I don't know.
Yeah. To tap it out in Morse code on the on the instruments.
Well, it's. I haven't had a chance to read the new. Like, this is news to me, actually.
Yeah,
I've been working on other stuff.
To be honest, I wasn't actually following all that much because what they mentioned earlier, I was not that impressed with their model. I didn't actually see the point in doing it in a blockchain way.
I think after reading the new white paper, I think that this has a chance to be bigger than Bitshares X.
Wow. Does it now, out of curiosity, does it talk about distribution and all that stuff? Like, has it changed? Because that was another issue that people were concerned about.
That did change a lot.
Well,
but it's not stated in the white paper.
Okay, well, this is the question that I have, because whenever I was talking to Cobb at one point in time, he essentially was like acting like legal costs were going to be their biggest cost, and they were trying to like get enough shares for them to essentially pay for those legal fees if they came up, like as an insurance fund or something like that.
Well, they may be able to leverage some of the legal work that i3 has done, and I was trying to get a sense of the relationship between i3 and the folks doing the music DAC, and it sounds like they're doing a lot of consulting on best practices and picking some of Bytemaster's brains on some of the more intricate economic items. And my takeaway from that is, going into this, they probably had a lot of legal questions that i3 has already tackled, and that may have stemmed some of their legal costs.
Well, they're dealing with different legal problems than i3 are. They have all these authorship, ownership, and DRM, and all that kind of stuff.
Are they going to have to deal with DRM type of stuff?
Yeah, I think so, because the music is still being sold, and so there's three components. It seems, well, at least three components that I've seen. There's the coin itself, the artist coin, which is sort of what we call like the bit asset. So you'd have to
it's like
buy
a Bitshares asset.
Yeah, and so you have that, which is basically the minted share of the artist. Then you have these notes, which is sort of like I think it's sort of like the Bitshares X. It's the currency of the exchange, and the third there was a third component. There's the actual sale of the music. To say I now have rights to the song, or I own the song, and I didn't get the notion that it was paid for with either notes or with the asset coin. And so there's still going to be the concept of piracy prevention.
Gotcha.
Did they do something with that? The last time I talked to them or had a discussion with them, they were more talking about more like the reputation of something and trading in the reputation. So being more like a marketing thing. And just being if it's the official recognized reputation trading system, of course, sort of like a stock for the artists, then that would be the recognized one.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of more important, I think, in some genres than others. But I can definitely see how that could work.
So it was the last time I heard they were not tackling that. What was a while ago, so I haven't read the new stuff. But they weren't even thinking about doing actual ownership of physical media or something, or the songs. It was more the reputation system, the marketing, the hyping, stuff like that. He was talking about making it a fun thing to do, so people could talk about and trade in with their favorite artists, stuff like that.
So like a music derivative almost, or like a fan club token.
Yeah, and doing and what he was thinking about was coupling it to little fan tokens, so more like the like posters or something.
Baseball cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes 3.2.3 of his white paper a little bit more understandable. For those that haven't read it, 3.2.3 talked about using coin control, where they could say, our newest songs are released to the top 10 coin holders, or the top 20 coin holders get backstage passes at our concerts.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So it was more. He was talking more like a fun thing, and maybe involve the kids to do it. And who knows? Maybe if you can get it on their phones, and they can do it among their friends and get something back for it in return, they could use it as a marketing tool.
Well, that's something we'll be able to talk about some of this stuff. But you're right about like a phone. If peer tracks were preloaded onto, say, Android phones, you're going to essentially have these. Pretty much anybody has a phone. Everybody who gets a phone who has this on it, they're going to end up loving it. You can essentially have it set up so whenever they log in and they set up their new phone that's attached to their identity, more and more we see this happening anyway.
If it's not actually attached to real dollars, then it's also legal to use for children below the legal age. That's another problem they have.
Well, it's going to be very interesting. That's going to be very interesting to see where the legal landscape, how they deal with it, and of course, how much control they're going to have. Because let's face it, the market's going to decide to a large degree. They're trying to control the internet, but the internet, it seems, is splitting off into many more internets. In many respects. I'm just waiting for your mesh networks, Joey. But I did want to say something to all you guys while you're here about Beyond Bitcoin X. We're essentially, thanks, Riverhead, for all your input today. We're trying to essentially get people to kind of do what, to use this type of server, or they can even set up their own server. You can do it essentially what you want, but to try to, if you're a person who knows a little bit about this stuff and you like to talk to people about it and you want to get certain people in the community recognition, feel free to create events in here and we can have these little town hall meetings. I'd like to get more representatives, and I'd also like to get delegates on to kind of like help fund some of those people doing those projects. I don't know how exactly to do it yet, but just so you guys all are aware of what we're trying to do. Anybody can essentially, if there's a DAC that comes out and you want to set up an event in here, feel free to do so. And I'm going to mute you, James, 212212. Does anybody else have any interesting projects they're working on or that we need to know about?
Or request for making this stuff work better? That might also be a good question to ask. How we could handle these hangouts better. Maybe people have ideas.
Does anybody have any ideas?
Well, I've been looking at the Mumblebot thing, maybe for translation. Today was the first time we actually needed it.
Yeah, well, it's getting to that point, so it's cool. I mean, I'm very interested in setting up delegate slates for the people who help us to build this into something that's going to be more of like a decentralized conference center. I'm going to have a whole wall up here of different links that support Bitshares and Bitshares-based stuff that honors AGS PTS. I'm going to have delegate slots on. We're going to have Java's making a template essentially that all different DACs can use for their delegates to register themselves and be known. And we can eventually have a portal where you can go to all of them, kind of browse the different DACs, choose your delegates from within your wallet.
Organize hackathons or something.
Man, that'd be badass. I really would like to see.
That's something maybe that's more interesting. So maybe help people get to know. And in this stage, it's probably helping people work on the code. Even though I can't help, but maybe there are people who are more knowledgeable about this. And maybe i3 could be involved in this because they might be interested in getting more people knowledgeable about their code.
Well, I'm very interested in all this stuff. I'm very interested in funding Bit University as well. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we could do that would really push that stuff forward, especially like what you're saying as far as coding.
Or even getting people used, so even people like yourself to just use the command line client or something and then get the hang of it. Maybe other people, I failed at it, but other people might be able to learn Python scripting or something, and then they can do their own stuff on the blockchain. Write their own bots.
Well, and it's going to be real interesting. What Bit University would be able to do would be able to actually, you could essentially attend it and study there and learn all the way up to developing your own
coin.
Blockchain tech, using Bitshares toolkit. You know what I mean?
The thing with the toolkit, the people seem to be worried about fragmentation. But as you said, if there's nobody is preventing someone else from trying it, so the market fragmentation will happen anyway. But the other thing is that technology should be able to do it. It's not they can't limit that technology.
Well, yeah, I think what he's saying is he doesn't want it to happen yet. He's hoping it doesn't happen yet. I know that's.
But he mentioned that his toolkit needs to be able to do it. That's the thing he was mentioning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You're right. I know that Cine's switching their coin to DPOS, but their Bitshares X their plans to do something with Bitshares X is I've luckily bringing him on here has kind of got him thinking about doing something innovative with it. So that's a plus. So this is going to happen. My main thing is I want to try to help it be as seamless as possible. And all these different altcoins essentially could still fund, a Bit University, the development of it and upkeep of it. Once these delegates.
University?
Huh?
What is a Bit University?
It's a new invention by Fuzznuts, and Fuzznuts doesn't know that he should not use the word bit anymore in anything.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to hate the word bit, man. More than a little bit.
Well, it really, the only problem with it is you want to use it because BitShares, Bitcoin, you want it for market acceptance. You want people to associate Bit with I hate to say this, but it's true. You want them to associate it with what they associate themselves with an iPhone.
Seriously, you should not use the term bit anymore. There's so many bit anything that has just become become noise. So you won't be noticed if you use bit in your name anymore.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say too. So I think there are always trends, fashions, and the bit something blah blah blah.
It's a fashion
is over. It's
man,
and at some point, in 2 years or 1 year, it's it's a shame to use the word. And now it's kind of on the fence. Should you use it or not? Depends on the cultural or the socioeconomic zone you're in.
My biggest problem with the whole Bitshares thing is I missed the discussion where they decided on the Bitshares name, and I would have fought them as hard as I could to not use the term bit anymore.
You're ahead of your time, Joey. Back then it was still cool.
Man,
Coin
I don't
and
know,
bit.
like
Those should not be used anymore. Coin or bit. Those are you just don't. So it become
you
a
guys
joke.
you guys are all in Europe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it seem like that's the trend? I'm serious.
Like the guys from Europe could predict the trend better, like the fashion trend better than the American guys.
Yeah, definitely. Unless I was a New York guy, then it might be different. It might be a little different then.
So then you look like Lady Gaga or something.
Well, essentially, this is it's very interesting to hear your input. I guess what I'm saying is you have an alliance of coins that essentially can switch to DPOS, right? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't SexCoin want to switch to DPOS? They can build infrastructure, marketing tools. They can use all that profit to actually market the coin and to market the ecosystem, right? The delegates can do that, and the people can vote them into power based on what they're going to do to promote the ecosystem.
Well, the thing is, this is all very new, and that's actually part of the stuff we need to focus on, not on a solution that will work forever. And that's a lot of the critique I've seen on the forums, and even in this channel tonight. People seem to want to have a solution that will just work forever. That's not how this was going to work out.
Well, this is the thing. I think you're actually gonna agree with this, Joey. Now I'm gonna piss you guys off, and I'm gonna tell you guys the name is going to be bit on both of them. So you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Okay,
I'm not going to change it. I'm not necessarily not going to. I'm open for anybody changing it, whatever. But for this description, right now, this is how I'm going to use those terms: Bit Alliance and Bit University. Okay, and the Bit Alliance would essentially establish a set of standards that they believe are the best set of standards for like moving forward in certain aspects of blockchain technology. And you could essentially
Can you get more specific, like standards for what, and what are certain aspects?
Okay, well, let's look at literally any DPoS based chain, and DAC, any DPoS based DAC could essentially have inside of it voting, like a Bitshares vote. That could be like a layer that is added onto the service. You know what I mean? So essentially, people could vote using their shares on, in a direct democracy type of way on standards. So you could essentially have a bunch of people who are on different chains, but they can all vote into like certain standards for different areas, like tagging it, and I haven't come up with all the solutions, but what I'm saying is we need to be working on these solutions, like something to the effect of where all these different, if somebody comes up with a Bitshares X clone, people can look at it and say, hey, this is certified DAC. This is a Bitshares certified DAC. It upholds certain core criteria that they believe are absolutely necessary for user safety and to ensure that it's not a scam and so on. You know what I'm saying? Because whenever you do that, you create legitimacy.
Yeah, and people what do you mean with the certificate? The certificate now is more like a diploma that people can use a certain type of product, but we're not even we're still in the experimental phases. We don't even know how the products we are making are going to look like. So how can you make certificates for them?
I'm not. Well, this is a long-term thing, isn't it? You're right. I mean, I guess my thoughts are that we need to be thinking about these things. You know what I mean? Like, and we're going to have multiple different chains that exist. They're gonna grow, and they're going to compete with all of these other different DACs. Some of them aren't going to honor PTS and AGS, so there has to be a system, or or it would behoove us to consider having a system that would create incentives for people to want to honor us. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be plenty of people who hate us, who hate the Bitshares community, who will honor another coin completely and say, "Screw you guys! I live in Slovakia," or you know what I mean? Like, you guys aren't coming after me with your licenses, or like, what do you guys think?
Well, the university one is one like, well, the education part, trying to develop this and help teach each other and foster a new group of possible future builders. That's something that agrees with me. What the certificate thing is more trying to lock things down, and I don't know if that's really what we want right now.
Well, and I guess I'm not necessarily saying looking at it as locking things down so much as, and I'm not saying doing it now, I'm saying that we have to consider a means, and that's my solution, like what I've come up with. So if there's something better, of course.
But the thing is, this stuff generates funding, and we're more efficient than the Bitcoin miners. Maybe part of this funding can do stuff like, and I'm saying like because it's only the first versions of it, like Kickstarter, like Google Summer of Code, but then more decentralized and not with. But maybe agree on something. Maybe that could be in a DAC form. Too soon now. And DAC in the sense of a distributed autonomous group or philosophy or something. So you have a Kickstarter DAC, and they're trying to fundraise stuff, and the market decided which stuff gets funded and which don't, stuff like that.
Oh wow!
And the similar thing with the Google Summer of Code, but we need a kind of a reputation system and stuff like that. And the hard part is trying to figure out how to make this decentralized. And even though we want it, it doesn't mean we can just make it. We have thousands of years of culture to cross. Maybe we won't even be able to do it, and we need to educate the younger children who haven't been brainwashed yet.
What are you sending us, Zero?
Yeah, that's an announcement from COP about actually it's a pre-announcement for an announcement at the weekend about the distribution of for music. Yeah, fast. Do you have Skype?
I do, but I don't use it.
Okay, because you missed a great discussion with COP over there. When he was
Really?
he was posting a link to a Google Doc of this white paper for proofreading, and I took a look at. I basically did some proofreading, and we were also discussing a little about the distribution. And I don't think I'm supposed to tell anything about this, but it changed a lot. The distribution.
Okay, but things like that need to be clear before he does the fundraising, if he wants to be public, or otherwise you have this hidden group of insider people, and that won't go down well with the broader community.
Yeah, this leads us to a conclusion
that you like.
So you should publish.
You should not keep secrets, and you should not keep the thing is what really goes down badly in the crypto scene, and not really oddly that it does that, is if you keep stuff hidden and just want to sucker people in and keep information from them, so not telling them what the thing is. You need to be really clear about your distribution model, that this is a public thing. The distributed idea is just like Kickstarter. You can't actually keep that many secrets about your company.
Is this a pre-announcement, or is this an announcement, or?
The link is a pre-announcement.
So he's essentially
he is announcing the date of the snapshot, but he's not announcing the distribution yet. But the weekend, 2 days. I'm not sure why he's waiting, because he publicly posted it in a Skype chat already. So maybe he will. Maybe there are some legal issues still that will be fixed the weekend, or I have no idea.
So this is
Yeah,
about the PTS snapshot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, AGS is already gone, so there's not going to be a real snapshot anymore.
Yeah, that was what
Did
I'm
you-
talking about with Fusnot earlier, about the AGS thing, people honoring AGS. The hard thing about that is, well, maybe something needs to be worked out, that AGS, the PTS is the flexible one. That's why you can make choices now. And if there are new people now who missed the fundraising, and now that Bitshares is proving itself, might be interested, they can no longer be part of the AGS crowd. And they might consider that a bad thing.
Well,
But
the
people
thing
who donated to AGS also had a greater risk of no return at all.
That's true. But I hope a lot of people are not expecting AGS to receive more than the people they're trying to market to. That's one of the things people I think.
Can I tell you how I see it? I see AGS the first time. A lot of people didn't. They thought it was a scam, you know. So we did take a risk. It could have been a scam. We could have pumped a bunch of money into nothing.
Yeah.
And now that people realize that Invictus is legitimate and they're not going to they're not going to screw people over. This isn't somebody who just named something bit and now they're going to scam everybody. It's something that's bigger than that. So essentially, there's nothing keeping Cobb and them from doing an AGS style fund and saying, hey, we're going to donate this many of future iterations of our DAC or anything like that. They could come up with something, I guess is what I'm saying, that would could still incorporate AGS.
Have they done a discussion like that with Xerox? Would know because he's on the Skype channel apparently with them, but I don't know if they actually thought about their distribution model like that. I suppose if they're talking to Bytemaster, they would have, and Bytemaster understood the whole system a lot better than we did at the start as well.
Yeah.
Let me quickly check something.
Sure.
But the thing with the AGS, I agree that it should receive a proportional amount, but I hope people are not completely blindsided by their stake in stuff. I agree that it should. They funded the technology. They kickstarted or they bootstrapped the entire new system, so it's not like they didn't do anything. I like the AGS donators a lot more than the speculators who bought cheap and expect all their returns. That was the thing that really bothered me at the PTS model.